It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Well, hello there. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. How are you? Thank you for joining us. Always nice to have you here. We have a show for you today. Now, if I say it like that, it kind of is stating the obvious. However, if I say, we've got a show for you today, changes the whole meaning of the statement, doesn't it? But we do, in fact, have a show for you today. We've got two guests. First one up is Martin Sandler. Martin is a 5-time Emmy-award winning TV writer. And he's also an author of more than 70 books, if you can believe that. And he just won the 2019 National Book Award for Young People's Literature for his new book that he's promoting here on the show today called 1919. And as the title indicates, it is all about the year 1919 and all the different things that happened. It was a very busy year, and there are some parallels between 1919 and 2019, 100 years later. Very interesting interview. He will be up first, followed by Lucinda Mack. And Lucinda Mack is also an author and a poet, and she's written several books over the years. Her new book is called Nightsticks and Negligees, and it's a murder mystery, and she will tell us all about that. After the interviews, we've got some music to play. We've got one track from Music Submit. The track is called Everything Is Just Fine, and the artist is called Delph Pilgrim, D-E-L-F-E, Pilgrim. And then we've got two tracks from DJC Music, which is my music company. One is our outro, which I always play, but I never mention. And the other one is a song I wrote a while back called Riding on My Sound. I just thought I'd throw it in there from time to time. Some people don't know that I do produce and write music, so when we have some time on the show, I like to feature my own stuff. I know it's kind of blowing my own horn, but I don't do it that often. And my music is always available on all the usual outlets. If you are a musician and you would like us to promote your track, please check out our complete radio promotional package. Your track will air once a week for 4 weeks over all of our online platforms. Your track will always be played at the very beginning of the show before the commercials and interviews. You will also get a 15-minute interview to promote your album, single, upcoming gigs, or anything you want to talk about. We will feature your photo, bio, and links to your website and music on our website in the Featured Music Artists section. Once your month is up, those 4 shows that featured your song will permanently archive over all of our online platforms such as Spreaker, YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and many other platforms. This is a great package, all for $49.99. Please go to our website, douglascolemanshow.com, and click on the Complete Radio Promotional Package link for complete details. Before we get started with the interviews, we've got Olaf, our friend from the Scandinavian countries. We're not sure which one he's from. I think he's from Sweden, though. Anyways, this was a bit we did several years ago. I thought I would rerun it because it's hasn't been played in a while, and it's sort of humorous. Gives you an idea of what some people might think is good quality music that they're trying to pitch to play on a radio show. So here is Olaf, followed by Martin Sandler, and then Lucinda Mack. Traveling through the tundras of Iceland, through the fjords of Norway, all the way to the assembly line at the Volvo plant in Sweden, from the home of ABBA, our very own Olaf Fnirgerson. Okay, Olaf, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you with us again. I understand that you brought a couple of songs with you that you wanted to have featured on the show. As you know, I'm always happy to play indie music and new music. I'm very excited that you brought some songs that you wanted to share with us. We're pretty flexible as far as genre is concerned. You know, as long as it's good music, that's really my only qualifications. So let me hear what you've got. What have you got for us today?
Oh, tack Douglas. Tack för att ha mig tillbaka på din show. Jag har 3 riktigt bra låtar som jag har väldigt mycket tacksam om du kunde spela på din show. Alla dessa låtar är fantastiska och jag är säker på din amerikanska politiken kommer att älska dem.
Oh, okay. Well, good. Always happy to do it. So why don't we just listen to the first song that you got? Can you give us the title of the first one, please?
Den kallas för Oh My God av några norska killar.
Oh, Norwegians, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Well, let's listen to this one. All right, here we go. This is Oh My God.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm looking for a sailor.
Oh my God, I'm looking for the sea.
Oh my God. I'm looking for a sailor.
I hope he does find his sailor anyways. No, that doesn't quite do it. What else have you got, Olaf?
Okej, kanske du kommer att gilla den här nästa bättre. Den är riktigt supersång. Jag spelar den hela tiden. Jag älskar verkligen den här sång. Jag tror att du ska komma att älska den också. Den kallas för Jag är en fattig bondedräng.
Really? Fucking boondebring, huh? Okay. All right, let's have a listen to this one.
Jag är en gammal fiskargubbe sitter och lappar ner. Jag har sån reumatism i ryggen och ont i ena knä. Nu är jag både trött och tung och blicken min den är slö. Men jag har också varit ung och trotsat storm och sjö.
Yeah, well, okay, Olaf. I don't know. I think I like the first song better. This is good music, huh? This is really really good stuff, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you say so. All right. Well, that's not really what we want for the show. I think you're kind of missing the point of what we do here on the Douglas Coleman Show, but there is one more, so let's see. Tell us about this last song, huh?
Oh, ja, den här nummer 1 sången i Sverige. Den kallas för du Vakenlars.
Well, okay. You know, I really hope that this song is good because, I don't know, the last two, they just, I don't know, they didn't quite hit me in the right spot. We'll see. Okay, so what's this one called again?
Kallas för du Vakenlars.
Du Vakenlars. All right.
Oh.
So this is really, really a good one, yeah? This is a great one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's listen to du Vakenlars.
Du vaken Lars, har du tvättat händerna, du vaken Lars, har du borstat händerna?
Okay, are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. I just can't believe you would bring this to my show. I mean, come on. The songs went from like bad to worse. I mean, this is outrageous. You have no concept of what it is that we do on this show here. I cannot believe this.
Yeah, better than ABBA or Roxette.
Better than ABBA. Well, I sort of doubt that.
Roxette. Ace of Base.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Goodbye,
Aqua,
Olaf.
Barbie.
We'll be right back. Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Martin Sandler. Hi, Martin. How are you?
Fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. Your credentials are very impressive. 5-time Emmy-award-winning TV writer and author of more than 70 books.
Yeah, not just a pretty face.
That is amazing. 70 books? Wow.
Yeah. I'm old, Douglas.
Well, even if you were 70 years old, you know, that's one book a year for your whole life. I mean, that's pretty incredible.
I know.
What did you do on TV? What shows did you write for?
Well, we did some very exciting ones. We did a series called This Was America with William Shatner that won a bunch of Emmys, and that was it still is syndicated around the world, I think. We did a series with Robert Mitchum called The Entrepreneurs. We did a program on talking about the Smithsonian with Gene Kelly.
Oh, wow.
That was a joy to do. We did some really good stuff, and I enjoyed doing it, but I missed writing the book, so I went back to writing the books. But it's plus, television is its own world.
I got to ask you about Gene Kelly because I am such a huge fan of his. Did you
Well, he was a joy. He was a true gentleman, and interestingly enough, we had a production assistant on the show, and he wound up marrying her 6 months after the show was over.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
But he's a good guy. He was a good guy, really. My wife still one of her proudest claims to fame is she got to dance with Gene Kelly.
Well, not everybody had that privilege. And
no, not at all.
He was one of the best dancers of all time, I think.
Well, not only that, he was a class act. He was really good.
Well, I'm happy about that. All right. Let's get to your book. You got a new book out that you're promoting called 1919.
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell us a little bit about the book? Give us a quick synopsis, and then we can...
All right. Well, first of all, I'm just thrilled that a few days ago it won the National Book Award, which is a huge honor and a huge surprise. It's the first time a non-fiction book ever won in the category of young people's literature. So that was nice, and it's extraordinary. Publishers go nuts over trying to. They always ask you as an author, what about writing a book that has to do with an anniversary, like the 50th anniversary of something in the 100th? Well, I've done a couple of those, and they've sold, but I've never found that because it's an anniversary sells 2 more books. But I go through the exercise anyway, and I was going through the exercise, and I get to 1919, and I said, all right, we'll do this and then stop. And all of a sudden what I discovered was that in 1919 women got the vote. In 1919 prohibition came in. In 1919 2 guys I had never heard of, and I'm sure your audience has never heard of, named John Alcock and Arthur Brown, flew across the Atlantic nonstop 8 years before Lindbergh. In 1919 we had what was called the Red Summer, and red standing for blood, because there were more lynchings and more race riots than at any time in history. In 1919, we had a flu epidemic in the United States that in the United States killed 300,000 people in that 1 year alone, but around the world killed 50 million, which makes it a deadlier epidemic than the plagues. Wow. In 1919, the greatest sports scandal in American history took place when the White Sox threw the World Series. Yeah. In 1919, the forerunner to McCarthyism, the Red Scare, took place. And finally, in 1919, in fact, 1919 began in January, when over 40 people in Boston were killed, and the elevated railroad came down in the North End, and 2 Boston firehouses were driven into the harbor by a 45-foot wave of molasses in the molasses flood. So it's an extraordinary year, and if for just that reason, meaning that roster of events, if just for those, I would, of course, done the book. Well, as I got into it, I found that they were not only interconnected, but that most of them had extraordinary relationship, to relevance to things going on today. So it became a real privilege to write the book, and I'm glad it came out so well. But I'm also it was just a joy for me to write this book. It really came out very well.
Tell me what you think are the comparatives between 1919 and now. What's going on?
That's a good question. For example, whoever would have thought that any government, let alone the United States government, would have passed a law saying you cannot, it's against the law to go to a bar because it's against the law to have a bar. It's against the law to buy a drink, an alcoholic drink. It's against the law to make an alcoholic drink. It's against the law to transport an alcoholic drink. Who would have ever thought that? And yet they did it. And what it did is it raised issues that are so much with us today, Douglas. I mean, for example, this whole issue of personal liberty versus the common good. I mean, you know, today we ask us, there are tens of thousands of people who today say, what right has the government got to say they'll put me in jail if I don't get my kid vaccinated? Or will say, what right has the government got to fine me if I don't wear a seatbelt? Or what right has the government to say I can't smoke recreational marijuana or medicinal marijuana? Or what right does the government have to say I can't smoke in this particular building? I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get beyond that debate, because it's a very logical one. You know, you can make arguments for the common good, but you sure the heck can make arguments for personal liberty. So that alone, to me, is a perfect example. I mean, but what I found as I did the book is that all of these issues, big and small, had tremendous relevance today. For example, the molasses flood. At first, when you tell people about the molasses flood and you don't tell them all the details, they think it's a joke or they think it's funny. Then when they find out how many people died and how many buildings were destroyed and what the ramifications, well, it's not so funny. But what they don't realize is that, when that molasses tank was built that exploded and caused this flood, there were no building codes at all in this country, not one. And that tank was built because World War I was ending, and the munitions manufacturers knew that their sales were going to be limited after the war, and molasses is one of the main ingredients in explosives, so they put up this tank and stored as much molasses as they can so they could sell as much as quickly as possible. The same thing was true that they knew that prohibition was coming in. And so they knew that the sale of rum, which is made from molasses, was going to be dramatically reduced. So again, they wanted to store as much molasses as possible. There were no building codes. They threw up this ramshackle tank to hold tens of millions of gallons of molasses. They had no engineer on the project. They had no blueprints on the project. They had no supervision on the project. And through contraction and through just slipshod construction, the darn thing exploded, and what resulted was a 45-foot high, 35-mile-per-hour wave of molasses pouring down the streets of South Boston, causing death and destruction. So that all of these things have ramifications, and it makes for tremendously interesting story. I want my history I write to be interesting as well as relevant, and I want it to have real meaning in my readers' lives. And I think these stories, certainly of such a thing as prohibition and the red summer and women getting the vote, all have tremendous meaning in our readers' lives.
What do you think has not changed in 100 years?
Oh, that's a very... The Red Sox still struggling to win the pennant. No, what
true,
hasn't changed is that progress. We have progress, but it's never in a straight line. We're going through some very hard times today. We'll come through it, but I mean, the women's right to vote. They get the right to vote, but does that mean they have equal opportunities? Does that mean they have equal pay? No. And does that mean they're not harassed? No. And yet here, 100 years later, we get the Me Too movement. That's real progress. Is that going to solve all the problems? No. And so it will continue. Certainly the same thing with black rights, with African American rights. Have African American rights made progress? Yes. You have to admit they have. Have they come far enough? No. Will it be a constant battle? Yes. What I try to do, I'll tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story. When I was 15 years old, and there was no such thing as television, and there was almost no such thing as electricity. But anyway, when I was 15 years old, we all read the newspapers, even us kids. And some of the heroes were the columnists, and the number one columnist in the country at that time was a man named Peter Finley Dunn. And Peter Finley Dunn had two fictitious Irish immigrant characters, Mr. Finley and Mr. Dunn, Mr. Finley and Mr. Dooley and Mr. Hennessy, excuse me. And through what Dooley and Hennessy said, that's how he got his message across. So one day I'm reading it, and Dooley says to Hennessy, "Hennessy, do you ever read history?" And Hennessy said, "Nah." And he says, "Why?" And he says, "Well, because I find that historians is like doctors. They takes the temperature, they feels the pulse, and they tells you what a country died of. When somebody comes along and tells me what a country lived of, that's what I want. That's when I'll read history." And I don't know why. I mean, nobody in my family had ever gone to college. I don't know why. But that struck me, and I said, that's what I want to do. I want to make history come alive. And so for the last 40 years, that's what I've tried to do. And I've tried to do it by having the people in the story tell the story as much as I can, and then combine it with my own words. I've tried to emphasize the humanity because, there's no more human story than history. I don't know about you, but when I went to high school, it was the most boringly taught subject. The textbooks were boring. They told me to go home and learn the list of presidents and give them back to the teacher. Had no relevance to my life. It taught me nothing. And so I was determined to start writing history in a very human way because it's an extraordinarily human story. I mean, in this 1919, with all these important things that are going on and all these transformative things that are going on, the most amazing thing to me is that some of the most interesting characters, larger-than-life characters in our history, walk through these pages. You've got Carrie Nation walking around with her hatchet, destroying one bar after another in the name of prohibition. You've got black leaders who are going to change. The first leaders of the foundation of NCAP walking the stage. You've got this Alcock and Brown who are absolutely conquering the largest challenge of their day in aviation, flying this channel. And you've got some people that we haven't known up to now, like Alice Paul. I had never heard of Alice Paul. Alice Paul is the absolute hero, not only of the women gaining the vote. She's just about the greatest hero of the era. She's an extraordinary woman, and when you realize, when you read about the sacrifices she made in the cause of women's rights, she just stands so tall, so that it's all a very human story. It's a story that I want particularly young people to know and to understand that if you're going to know what's important in today's world, you've got to know where it started and where it began, and you don't have to do it you don't have to learn it in a pedantic way. You can learn it in a very interesting way.
I don't think that history is taught in schools now like it was then. When you said, that thing about go home and memorize all the list of presidents.
Yeah, that's true, and that's not fair. I mean, it's not taught the same way, but still, we can still use improvement in making it as exciting as possible. Because I'm sorry, I just always believed that nonfiction is more fascinating than fiction if it's taught or written right.
Well, my point was that I don't think they're teaching it as well.
Okay.
I wasn't defending the way they're teaching it now. In fact,
no, I understand. You're supporting my point. Well, it's hard. It's hard being a teacher. I'll tell you that, and it's hard when you don't have the support that you really need. I mean, but On the other hand, I just believe that it's just an extraordinary privilege for me to be given the chance to write all these in quote history books. And what I really applaud, Douglas, is those judges on the National Book Award that voted the award to me, not because it was to me, but this is the first time in history that a nonfiction book, a history book, was voted for the National Book Award in that category. And I think they recognize that history can be not only incredibly informative, but it can be as relevant to kids as anything in nonfiction or any other medium.
Well, I'm a history buff, and I love to look at all kinds of different films and books and things of times gone by, and there is incredible parallels, which in one sense is fascinating, but in another sense is kind of frustrating and sad, because it makes me believe that mankind isn't learning too much from his past mistakes and continues to repeat them.
Well, the old cliche, which is so true, those who do not learn history are condemned to repeat it. That's absolutely right, and that's why we try to get this over in the most interesting way, so they will learn and they will take it to heart. But you're right, and we see it all the time. We fight the same battles all the time, and we make progress. I mean, the Me Too movement today is a big step forward in women's rights, although it comes 100 years later. And 100 years from now, I think both you and I will agree, 100 years later, there'll be other issues in which women still have not gotten the full equality they deserve, and they're battling for it. But progress has been made, but it's never made in a straight line. It's never made in this. We're going through hard times now, and we'll come out of it, but it's going to take its toll. It's already taking its toll.
Well, the whole thing, today they're trying to impeach the president and get the vote. And, I'm old enough, I think you're old enough to remember when this happened with Bill Clinton. And, it's the same thing, just repeating itself on the other side,
Yep.
It's exactly the same thing. And I'm thinking, why are we going through this again? I don't understand it. I really don't. Like, they don't have anything better to do in Congress.
I'm not going to talk politics with you. I'm only going to get in trouble.
No, it's all right. I just thought I'd throw that in since it is.
Listen, it's your show. I can understand it.
No, we don't try to go into politics too much on this show. I try to avoid it, but it is a big event today, so I thought I'd throw it in. And besides, by the time this airs, it'll be over with, because it's going to take a couple of weeks before we're pre-recording now, so it'll be history. It'll be history when people actually hear the show. Okay, so where is this book available? Why don't you plug your websites and things?
Well, I don't have a website, and the reason I don't have a website is I insist on answering everything. And the first day I put up a website, I got 800 letters or 800 tweets or whatever you call them, and I just couldn't keep up with it. But if you plug in, if you punch in Martin W. Sandler, you'll see all the books I've written. You'll see all the TV I've done and all that. But more important, if you just Google 1919, the year that changed America, you'll see 75 places where you can buy the book, and you can get it as the least expensive way, as long as you get it. But it's readily available, and from everything from Amazon to independent bookstores, and the most important thing is I think it's an important story, not because I wrote it, but I think it's an important story, and I think it's a story that's been neglected. And I, as a historian, never realized the importance of this 1 year in history, or how relevant it was to what's going on today. But you've said the major points. I mean, we seem to be condemned to repeat year by year. So maybe the more we learn, the more young people learn about the past, that won't be as true. We can only hope.
we hope that the next generation will not repeat the same mistakes that we did.
Exactly.
And we want them to do better than we did. And some do, some don't. So
that's right.
I think that's just the way it is. Martin, thank you so much for coming on the show. My guest is Martin Sandler. His new book is called 1919, and there's a million different places you can buy it, so just Google it and check it out. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on the Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Since the dawn of man, storytelling has held the power to rewrite history and shape our future. That power has too often been used to manipulate us and prey on our sons and daughters with impunity. Teenagers, lured by the siren's call of Hollywood dreams, are pitted against each other and told, if you won't do it, there's 1,000 more arriving tomorrow who will. The time has come to end this race to the bottom. Secrecy and silence no longer need to be the price for success. Technology, laws, and culture have culminated in a moment of opportunity where disruption is not just possible, but inevitable. Gratwick was established to be a turnkey studio capable of supporting local artists without luring them away. To remain accountable at all times, it will be owned and operated by the audience and the artists. Own a piece of a new, transparent Hollywood where you hold influence over what gets funded, who gets cast, and what charities we support. Visit Gratwick Productions on StartEngine.com today and take ownership over who has the power to entertain you.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps, record producer. This is my story about Elton John, working with him in those early years, going back to 1967 at Dick James, all the amazing tours, those first recordings, going through to Rocket Records, and it's an amazing story about his incredible rise to stardom and my part in that. So look forward to taking you on that journey. So here we go. Yeah, and to order this great audio CD, please just email me at stuartepps@talk21.com. That's Stuart, Stuart, Epps, EPPS, at talk, TALK, 21 in figures.com. Stuart Epps at talk21.com. Email me and I'll give you all the details for buying this brilliant audio disc. Thank you, bye.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Tired of living in a culture of lies, fake news, and alternative facts? The Pro-Truth Pledge reverses the tide of lies by calling on politicians, and everyone else, to commit to truth-oriented behaviors. The pledge asks signees to commit to 12 behaviors that research in behavioral science shows lead to truthfulness, such as clarifying one's opinions and the facts, citing one's sources, and celebrating people who update their beliefs toward the truth. Private citizens who sign the pledge get the benefit of contributing to a more truth-oriented society. Public figures get more substantive rewards for signing the pledge in the form of positive media and public recognition. The pledge crowdsources the truth by asking volunteers to evaluate the statements of public figures who sign the pledge. Take the pledge, demand that your elected representatives do so, and encourage your friends to take it at protruthpledge.org.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. radio promotion for indie musicians.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat.
Again?
Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! No doubt about it. I gotta get another hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Lucinda Mack. Hi, Lucinda. How are you?
Doing fine.
Well, glad to hear it. So let's see. You are an author and a poet, and you've written several works. Your new book is called Nightsticks and Negligees. Okay. Great title. I like that. Why don't you just tell us a little about your background first, and then we'll talk about the book.
Well, I've been around quite a while, and I've worked in pharmaceutical firms, and I've worked in different parts of industry, and at one time I ran my own business and even worked in home care for a while. So I have a pretty broad perspective of life and a pretty good handle on what things are about. So I thought I'd write a book.
Okay. This book is a murder mystery. Is that right?
It's a murder mystery thriller with some dots of passion and poetry.
Okay. Can you give us a synopsis of it?
I think the best way to describe it would be two women, detectives, who are working their way through the maze of confusion of murders and abductions. And what they do is, while they're solving the crimes, they're also finding out about themselves, what they represent to themselves, to each other, and the world around them.
Okay. This isn't your first book, is that correct?
I have written many books, but this is the one that I've decided to publish.
Oh, all your other books are not published?
Nope, they've been given out as gifts to friends. I've written paranormal sci-fis. I've written other love books, heterosexual, bisexual, transgender, everything.
Okay. How, are you self-publishing or do you have a publisher?
I have self-published.
Okay, tell us a little about that process, because I know some people don't know how to go about doing that.
Well, I was very lucky. I saw a group of different self-publishing companies on the internet and checked to see which ones were reputable. Of course, that's the one thing you want to do. And secondly, you want to talk with people at the publishing company and see if you can make a connect in how you feel about the process and if you want to go forward. You know, there's always a feely, touchy part of, do you want to publish with this particular company? I published with the particular company that I felt very comfortable with, and you can pretty much tell that when you call them on the phone and you discuss what you're writing, and you get their impressions and their feedback as to how they can assist you.
Okay. I'm just reading through this bio. It says, lost in the LGBTQ community. Friends and family. Is this anything to the HIV crisis back in the 80s, 90s?
Actually, I had a cousin who died of AIDS. It was very much suppressed. The people in the family, we were all told that he passed from pneumonia and found out later that it really was from the HIV virus. But I also had two female friends who died, self-inflicted wounds, deaths, suicides, whatever you want to call them, because they couldn't cope with the society of non-acceptance. And they had a really difficult time. And it devastated me to a certain point.
I know that there has been progress made. You know, perhaps we have more to go in society in terms of acceptance for LGBTQ. But I know it certainly has improved from when I was in school. Because when I was in school back in the 70s, there was essentially zero support. There were no supports for gay teens, high school teens, anyone like that. And being ridiculed for being gay was accepted, if you can believe that. And now I don't think it is. I think certainly it's not. And there is a lot more support for the kids growing up. But I know it's still a problem with teen suicide, gay teen suicide. What else can we do as a society?
Well, I was hoping that the book, the poetry, the passion, I took a lot of care and effort into creating full-bodied characters that you can align with, that you can understand, that you can feel compassion, empathy, and sympathy for. I'm hoping that one of the aspects that I've achieved with the book is to make people want to propel themselves past their biases and make them understand that love is love, people are people. We should really want to understand who those other people are that sit across the table from us, who hide in their rooms and try to sit in their chairs and walk in their shoes, and understand that love has many forms, and that we can't really truly be each other, but we can try to put our hand out and grasp somebody else's hand in consideration, in alliance, in just being another person. I mean, we're all human, and we have human faults, and we have human qualities, and we just need to appreciate each other and understand we all have our own problems and dilemmas and demons. We shouldn't add someone's sexual proclivity to that list of problems.
Do you have any knowledge or firsthand experience with transgender people?
I do.
Okay, because I have had contemplations about it. I don't quite understand the difference between... Now, this is the argument that I've heard. People have said that your sexual orientation is not a choice. You were born gay, straight, but transgenderism or gender is a choice. And I'm confused on that. Can you shed some light on how one can be a choice and one not?
Well, I know a transgender person personally, and his take on life was, after having had a relationship with women, I guess he was around 37, and he decided that he had tortured himself for years about the fact that he felt as if he had been born in the wrong body. He felt like a woman but was trapped in the body of a man. And it takes a lot of talking to people who go through this, and I spent a considerable amount of time talking with him and trying to grasp what he was saying. He just felt out of sorts with himself. He never felt normal. He never felt like he was part of society. He wanted to reflect who he really was. And so he made the choice to turn from a man into a woman and has never regretted that choice. Now, of course, that comes with consequences because he has children. So he made that choice after thinking about everything, after weighing the pros and cons. I think if someone is born a woman but decides that she is a lesbian because of her unique makeup, or a man decides that he is a gay because of his own makeup, that comes from the essence of life, from the beginning. I think sometimes the transgender people, the transgender experience is something that doesn't invade them initially, that grows over a period of time. I think the lesbian and gay groups of people have the feeling that they're attracted to another person who is of the same sex, maybe from the age of 5 or 6. I think that's where the difference is.
So transgender people are not necessarily homosexual.
Correct.
So where does the choice part come in?
I think if you're a transgender person and you've lived life and you've had relationships with heterosexual relationships, that at some point you gain or get the understanding that you're out of sync, and that you didn't before, but you now have the ability to cross that bridge and become the woman or the man. You couldn't do that before.
Oh, I see. Okay, so the choice is, meaning you're not choosing your biological gender. You're choosing which gender you're more comfortable.
Right, you're identifying.
You're identifying. Okay. Whereas
I think that's my take on it. Now, if you interview transgender people, of course they're going to have different takes on it, and because we're all human and we have our own proclivities and our own feelings, there may be people or many people who differ with my analogy.
It was just confusing to me because, and now that you've explained that, it makes more sense. But before that, the idea that if that could be a choice, it would tend to negate the argument that sexual orientation was a choice, which a lot of the religious right groups have been proclaiming, that it would be a choice and therefore not entitled to protection under the law. So, and now I've known gay people, many, And every single one of them will tell me that it's not a choice, that they just were born that way. They were attracted to their same sex as heterosexuals are. And I accept that. But I just couldn't quite get the difference with the gender issue. But what you're saying is that the actual choice to be the other gender or to live as the other gender, that's where the choice involved.
That's what I think. Now,
Okay.
I'm not a transgender person, nor am I gay or lesbian, but from the people that I've dealt with, and many of them have been close friends, that's the sense that I get.
Okay. Well, I think it's a logical argument. So I will accept that until I hear something else that makes more sense. But that certainly sounds fine. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I think my book is something different. I think it offers a lot of different things to different people. I think it's exhilarating, and I think having poetry and passion in a crime, murder, mystery is something out of the ordinary, and I think people should, pick it up and take a look at it and see what I've said, because I think they might be interested.
Okay. Give people your website where they can find the book and check you out and check out the book, buy the book.
It's www.lucindamack.com.
Okay, that's great.
And you'll look up nightsticks and negligees. You can do either, and I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and of course on my website.
Well, if there's nothing else you want to talk about, I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you. Best of luck with the book. I hope it does well.
And have a wonderful holiday.
You too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hi, this is John Morgan, production supervisor for DJC Productions, and you're listening to The Douglas Coleman Show.
So this is it. He found the evidence that everyone's lying, and he regrets not being blind. He's got no even some place he can stay. You know the truth is always something to say, and you know the truth, but you let go. 'Cause you have probably found a way. It's pointless, everything he's done for you, while he still believes you just go. Come on. Everything is fine. Everything is just fine. We're alone drinking your wine. I see you here, it's divine. Now I already know that you play with me. It will be the last time. Such things never last. So you let go. He learned the lesson and he made up his mind. But only then he had no tears for crying. Maybe the end of the world's gone away. But tell me, maybe it's already too late. You're going crazy 'cause you feel low. Now wherever you do, you just can't let him go. 'Cause you understand it's like feeding his heart to the dogs. Come on. Everything is fine. Everything is just fine. We're alone drinking your wine. See you here, it's divine. Now I already know that you lied to me. It will be the last time. Such things never last. such things never last. Everything is fine, everything is just fine. We are alone drinking wine, see here it's divine. Now I already know that you lie to me. It will be the last time, such things never last.
I don't always have the time. It's not your fault or mine. Just happens when we stay too long. Outside as we are cold, there's something you were told about me and my love for you. Riding on my sound, no need to slow it down. Moving so fast, I keep on falling. Riding on my sound, will never touch the ground. There's always been a long, long way down. Round the circle we did go, we just forgot to grow, debating life and love, all wrong. And now we cannot run, doesn't mean we won't have fun, expecting you to understand. So sell it all online and go somewhere divine. Forget the life we had before. Can't you hear my voice? I really have no choice. It's all I can do to belong to you. Riding on my sound, I never touch the ground. There's always been a long, long way down.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Martin Sandler, Lucinda Mack. Also, thank you to Delph Pilgrim for their music. And thank you to Olaf for making a return. This is Douglas Coleman saying I'll see you later.
To the mile, you've got to run, not walk. To give a sermon, you've got to preach, not talk. To reach the mountain, you've got to climb, not dream. To say you love me, you've got to speak, not scream. All the way on love, can't do it just halfway. All the way on love, it's a big price to pay. All the way on love, if you feel it, then make it stay. 'Cause all the way on love, find salvation, you've got to pray, not pay. Forget the answer, it can't be found that way. Love was simple, we'd have it every day. So keep on searching, and clear will come from grace. All the way on love, can't do it just halfway. All the way on love, oh, it's a big old price to pay. All the way on love, if you feel it, then make it stay. 'Cause all the way on love. So hold on tight and learn to give, not take. Just keep it real and learn to make, not break. You think it's easy, life is upside down. That's when they'll tell you you've got to turn